Hello and welcome to the best gear for primitive camping part 5. I've pulled out all the stops today because the Danish summer weather is more funky than Stevie Wonder on LSD. So we gotta come prepared. This sunshine probably ain't gonna last. Today we are of course talking about the knife. For me, the most basic and essential tool in camping, bushcraft and survival. Today we're going to talk about the knives I use, the grinds I have and why I've chosen them. Also, a few tips and tricks because when you only have a knife, you got to be creative when you need to process firewood and material. So let's get going. For most of my trips, day trips and longer camping trips, I do not bring an axe, I do not bring a saw. But what I do bring are different kinds of knives. And it's almost always a combination of a big knife and a small knife. And the big knives I bring is the Northern Woodsman outdoor knife from Emil Handmade Knives. I'll put all his details in the description below because he is my go-to knife guy and has been for a year and a half. Or it is the Northern Woodsman Bushcraft Knife, which is currently sold out because there has not been many of them made. A very special knife. A smaller knife. I used to rock the Open L number 8 as my food prep knife and for tiny chores and carving around camp, but I have since replaced it with the Northern Woodsman Necker. I'm proud to be using these knives because they are designed and manufactured in collaboration with my good friend Martin from Northern Woodsman. I'll link his Instagram as well. He has made them together with Emil Handmade Knives and they are just awesome. At the moment I am rocking the Northern Woodsman outdoor knife. And why am I rocking this at the moment? Well, first of all, having a knife outdoors, invaluable. Processing material, making fire, making shelter, can be used to defend yourself if it comes to that. The only thing I'll be defending myself from in these woods are ticks, but they also get a good jabbing and a good stabbing when they come crawling on me. This Northern Woodsman outdoor knife is a Scandi grind knife. It is a knife that has a broad bevel and is very good for general and rough jobs. It's very good at batoning wood. It's very good for the heavy duty stuff. It is also full tang, so you can use it to split firewood, and it can indeed take some rough housing. When you only have a knife outdoors, it's important that it is up for the challenge and it has to take a lot of punishment and a lot of action. Why I often choose the Scandi grind for longer camping trips is pretty simple reason. I personally am better at sharpening a Scandi grind than I am sharpening a bevel that has a 20-degree edge. I find it much harder to actually sharpen the 20-degree angle edge than I do a Scandi grind because the large bevel here on the Scandi grind, you can just kind of place it on your whetstone or whatever stone you have. I do it freehand. So it's much easier for me to find the correct point of the edge and actually give it a sharp edge. So when I'm out for longer periods of time, I often opt for the Scandi grind because it's easier for me to maintain if something should go wrong and it should get nicked or something like that. One downside to the Scandi grind I have found through my techniques is that I'm not as quick to make feather sticks with the Scandi grind as I am with a knife that has a 20-degree angle. Scandi grind is perfectly capable of making beautiful thin feathers, but personally it just requires a lot more concentration and a lot more finesse on my point. Scandi grind is really good at digging into the material and make large, deep cuts. And that is also why I love it. The Northern Woodsman Bushcraft knife with the 20 degrees, it's much easier for me to make very thin and very curly feather sticks in a tempo that is just, triple the speed of what I can do at the moment with a Scandi grind. The different grinds both have very good merits. The 20-degree angle on this Bushcraft knife is very, very good. It's full tang, it's very big, durable, so it can split and baton large pieces of wood, especially for, when out solo camping. So it can do anything the Northern Woodsman outdoor knife can do. But when I'm out for a longer time, I tend to opt for the Scandi grind because that I can just maintain a lot easier. So there's some pros and cons here. Also bring the small knife, again, 20 degrees at the knife's edge, and harder for me to maintain, my personal skill level at the moment. This is kind of my carving knife when out on trips, and also my food prep knife if I can get it properly cleaned, in between the harder jobs. This or this is kind of the combi I go for, but often when I'm out, I just take one knife, and that will often be one of the big knives so I can actually process wood in a proper way. The steel these knives are made out of are pretty hard. Not so hard that they become brittle and you have to be very careful when you sharpen them or use them, but hard enough they will keep a very sharp edge, so you have to really batter them to actually have to grind them and maintain them on your stones. What I do when I'm out with these knives is use stropping compound. So this is stropping compound. It has a grit of about 50,000 to 60,000, which can make your blades razor sharp. So when I'm out in the field and just maintaining my knives, on the regular, just to keep them razor sharp in between, jobs or before I go to bed, I use my stropping compound on my leather belt, and then I simply just find a surface and I just give them a good work over. I just give them a good stropping before I go to bed. And to top it all off, I give them some oil. Nothing fancy here. This is just rapeseed oil. And I give them a thin coating before I put my tools away before sleep. Now this keeps the knives from rusting from the morning dew, or if you have worked with them out in the rain. When you only have a knife, you gotta get a bit creative. So let's process some firewood. Since we don't have a saw, we have to get creative when trying to break up our wood into smaller pieces. So we either can baton them or so they kind of fit the size of our bonfire we want to make. And you can absolutely do this by jumping onto it, risking bouncing back off or hitting something or landing awkwardly or something. One of the ways I really like is leverage. You've probably seen this one, but I think it's underrated and deserves some more attention. So find a tree that has a formation that looks kind of like this. Jam it in here, and then we're just going to push or pull. And that's fairly easy. And this is actually pretty good wood. Let's try to get a smaller piece now, and let's try where it is a bit thicker, just to show you what this method can do. Absolutely. And this can be batoned pretty easily like it is. Not too jagged, you can easily get your knife in here. There was a weak point there, so it broke. Not bad. This is just fine on a big old bonfire. No use in totally overexerting yourself. There's always a lot of material out here, so save your energy. This technique, one more scenario. So if you don't have a tree that has that Y shape, Y branches, just find something like this. Any place where you can get some leverage will do. Let's try. And then remember, lift with your back in jerking, twisting motions. Don't do that. Not the best or strongest wood I've found here, but it's dry, a bit more decayed than the other one. But the principle still stands. Use leverage instead of just brute force that could hurt yourself. And yeah, a good way to get firewood when you don't have a saw. Let's do some batoning. You know what? Let's just keep going. Let me just show you how I do it. This will do. And again, as I talked about in my safety videos, something that you do not want to fuck around with is tool safety at your camp. So when you're not using your knife, put it away properly. And so on and so forth, but that is usually how I do it when I just bring a knife. So another tip on processing wood, if you only bring a knife. Don't have a saw, don't have an axe, and you don't really want to bother with all that breaking wood and leverage points. So this is your fire right now. You've done all the prep, you got the fire going, but you are missing the bigger pieces, the pieces that you just can't pick from the trees or off the ground, but you don't want to process it any further. So let's make a Starfire. So now, instead of finely processed wood logs, just take your huge dry material and put it in a star formation, hence the name Starfire. And you just do this to your heart's content with the sizes you want. It does not have to be huge logs, it could also be this. But now the fire is raging and roaring, and you have saved yourself a lot of strenuous activity by just placing them in the fire like this. And as they burn along, just adjust the pieces like so inward, and then you will keep your fire going. You will have to put some smaller material on from time to time just to keep some smaller embers going and some heat around it. But this is an absolutely viable option if you don't want to process that much wood and you only have a knife. Extra tip. That was about it for this episode, because it's not really that hard to see why it is important to have a dependable cutting tool in the woods. Besides this, I think a top is one of the most valuable things you can have in the woods with you. A knife for processing and, making your stay in the woods actually better, and a top to do it in the comfort out of the elements. This was it for Best Gear for Primitive Camping part number 5, the knife. Now please go check out this manufacturer Emil and look what he has done on his page and with his craft. Everything down in the description. Have a very good day. And if I don't see you in the woods, hopefully I'll see you in the comments. Sila ya.